Tonight, I am here once again to give you free legal advice on immigration. This is an opportunity for you to have free legal advice. It's an opportunity for you to ask questions. In fact, this program is about you. And this program is proudly sponsored by CITI Law Solicitors. Tonight, I'll be looking at the grounds for refusal at the entry. Most time when people get visas from abroad, they simply feel that that visa is a license for them to just enter the UK. But in most cases, this eludes them, because when they get to the point of entry, which is at the airport, they are refused entry and return to wherever they are coming from. So tonight I'll be looking at how one can avoid that, because this is something that is becoming very prevalent, especially for those of you who are coming from Africa. And it's also so common that you find people who come in the morning and in the evening they are sent back on the same flight. But above all, I'll also be looking at students and those on the skilled worker route. Because there are various reasons why people are refused entry. There are also reasons why people's visas are cancelled. And for those who are already living in the UK, there are reasons why their visas can also be refused, even when they have leave to remain, existing leave to remain, and upon renewal. So it's quite broad, but I will take my time, as I do always, to make sure that viewers grasp what I'm coming to discuss tonight. So I'm going to look at visitors, those who are coming in as visitors, those who are coming in as spouses, those who are coming in as either students or skilled workers, and even those who are living here, how they can protect their existing visas, because there are conditions on those visas. And tonight, I'm going to take my time to explain all these areas. And I want to urge you to join me or invite your friend so that we can have this discussion on immigration. Now, if this is the first time that you have joined us, we do this program every Tuesday from 9 p.m. in English. And then on Thursday, the famous MC Chaka hosts this program on this platform in Twi, wherein we discuss all these programs or all these topics in Twi. So the same topic I'm doing here tonight will be discussed in Twi on Thursday from 9 p.m. However, you can watch this program on CITI Media TV. You can also watch this program on Facebook, my own profile, or CITI Law Solicitors channel on YouTube. And therefore, you can also listen to this program from CITI Media Radio. So you have no excuse to miss this show. Proudly sponsored by CITI Law Solicitors. Now at this point, having introduced my topic, that I am going to look at those of you. In fact, it is also important to mention here that these days people are also banned for 10 years because they've submitted false document, they've made false misrepresentation, or because they have failed to disclose an information, or they have given false information. And most of these people are sometimes banned for 10 years. Imagine being banned for 10 years because you made application for visa and some information, false information was submitted, it means that for 10 years, any application that you do or you submit is most likely under the mandatory grounds to be refused. So we are talking about very serious stuff here. And it's for this reason that I'm just giving this free legal advice to you. Especially for those of you who are watching from Nigeria and Ghana and all the African countries. This is an opportunity for you to get this free legal advice, which is so essential to those visa applications, and especially for those of you who have been banned for 10 years. Most times, Home Office rules, especially paragraph 320, which is very common to those of you who have had your visa refused and been banned for 10 years, are misapplied. Tonight, I'm going to teach people how, when those paragraph 320 relevant sections are misapplied, how people can challenge those decisions. This is your opportunity for you to get this free legal advice. So in the next few minutes, I want you to invite your friends, share the video, and obviously I'm going to come back in just a second so that I can take my time and slowly explain all these areas that people can avoid. They don't fall into the trap or those grounds wherein their visas are refused at the point of entry, or their student visas are refused at the point of entry, or their skilled workers visas are refused at the point of entry, or their student visas are cancelled, or their skilled workers visas are cancelled because they've not complied with the relevant conditions abiding those visas. So please, don't go away. Just wait for me in a second as I allow CITI Law Solicitors, who is our sponsor, to display the areas of law that they practice. you so much for your patience. As I said tonight, I'm going to take my time to educate viewers to ensure that people don't fall into the trap of your visas being cancelled at the point of entry. I'm sure people most times get devastated because when they get to the point of entry, and this is becoming very, very, very common, they get their visas cancelled. Even those who are here, sometimes when they make fresh or they try to renew their visas, these visas get refused. And there are cases where people get letters that their visas have been revoked. Tonight, I'm going to take my time to give this free legal advice. You can only get this from City Law Solicitors. I'm going to look at various categories of visas that are either cancelled, revoked, or those who are refused entry at the airport. This is quite common, and City Law Solicitors will deal with these cases regularly. So when I say it's common, I know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to look at specifically those who come in as visitors, those who come in as spouses, those who are partners or married. I'll also be looking at those who are coming in as skilled workers. Oh yes, some skilled workers get their visas also refused at the point of entry. I'm going to tell you why. Students, most importantly. So tonight, I am going to take my time and slowly deal with all these areas. I wouldn't have enough time because I started late. But that notwithstanding, I'm sure that I'll be able to touch on all these 4 areas that I've just enumerated. And let me choose my words quite carefully for the benefit of those who are watching, so that you guys can understand what I'm saying. I don't want to be quite legalistic tonight. Now, normally when you are applying for a visit visa, the starting point is that you provide information. Now, most times people get people to assist them because some people, they don't even know where to fill these forms. And unfortunately, especially those of you who are coming from Africa and most parts of the world, where immigration, for example, is not a regulated area or a practice in those areas, you may consult a friend, you may even go to travel agent who perhaps may have no clue about immigration law to assist you to fill the form so that you can come and visit either your mother, your family friend, or even to come as a tourist or to come for a program. But the danger is that under paragraph 320 of the immigration rules, people sometimes are refused and they are banned for 10 years. Just recently I was talking to somebody who made previous application, was refused and was banned for 10 years. And then he made another application for, initially it was for student visa. And I'm going to tell you why he was refused and banned for 10 years. And then in the course of time, his circumstances have changed. And then he made another application because now he has had opportunity to study another part of the world, not in the UK, and want to come and visit a family member. He made that application for just family visit, and automatically he was refused because it's not up to 10 years since he was first refused, and he's banned for 10 years. But people need to challenge some of these decisions because the paragraph 320 in most times is misapplied. When I say it's misapplied, it means that it is used incorrectly. Now, when I sit here and talk, in most cases, I am not here just to talk about fiction. I talk about facts. Now, this morning I was just representing a client, and when you look at the decision, quite clearly, it's incorrect. But this person has been refused. So imagine he has not challenged the decision to the tribunal. It means that he will suffer the consequence of that refusal, even though it is through no fault of his. So for those of you who are making efforts to come in for visit, most of you are doing very well and you have the intention of just coming in for visit. And you have every evidence to show an incentive to return at the end of your visit. But for one reason or the other, you may consult someone who assists you to fill the form, and eventually you get refused. The reason being that perhaps any of these three areas, either because there is misrepresentation, which means that giving information that does not represent the truth, or because false documents have been submitted. I will take my time to explain this. Or because false information has been submitted, or because you have failed to disclose an essential information. So when you look at part 9 of the immigration rules, most times when any of these things happen, or if the caseworker, the entry clearance officer, so decides that either you have submitted, allegedly decide that you have submitted false document, you have made false or misrepresentation, or because you have submitted false information, or you have failed to disclose essential information, then the punishment for that is 10 years ban. And let me explain why this ban is so detrimental, so bad, because for 10 years, any application that you submit will automatically, under the mandatory grounds of the Part 9, be refused. So recently I'm doing some applications, we are doing some applications for some clients, and then I always insist that if you have ever been refused, even if you are relying on this skilled worker route, let me see your previous refusal letter. Because sometimes people are even refused and banned for 10 years and they don't know. They are not aware. They read the letter, they know that they have been refused, but they are not aware that they have even been banned for 10 years. So sometimes you get opportunity to make a new application as a skilled worker, as a spouse, and automatically you are refused simply because you are banned for 10 years. Even though there are some exceptions, for example, human rights grounds, or some other grounds where people could rely on and say that those 10-year bans should not apply to them. So the starting point is that when you are making these visa applications, or visa applications, for example, or spouse visa applications, you need to be very vigilant, because either the information you fail to disclose, or the information you mistakenly disclose, which is considered to be false information, or some facts that you give that is considered to be false misrepresentation, or some document that you don't know the source, because that deception might result, even if it's without your knowledge. So the fact that you will say that, oh, I was not aware that this document was forged, or I was not aware that this information was forged, does not mean that you will not be banned for 10 years. So it is important that people are very vigilant. People need to seek proper advice even when they are making these simple applications. The reason being that even though the application itself is so simple, the consequence of getting it wrong could result in a 10 years ban. So that is at the stage when people are making applications. Paragraph 320, 10 years ban. Now let's look at those of you who have gotten visas, either because you are coming for a program, and then you get to the point of entry. And unfortunately, you are asked to return to wherever you are coming from on the next flight. And we receive people calling all the time because they are on the flight, they arrive in the morning, and in the evening they are being asked to go back. Why? Because of the following reasons. Now, if you are coming on a visit, even if you are not aware, I've already explained that when people are refused these applications, entry grants make decisions and refuse these applications, they can result in a 10-year ban. That is even when they were not granted the visa. But sometimes people are granted this visa because entry grants officer perhaps may have not done due diligence. Therefore, they end up granting these visas, and then they get to the airport. So I'm looking at how you can avoid refusal at the point of entry. People must understand that when you get that visa, it does not mean that automatically you end up in the UK. Yes, that visa may allow you to buy a ticket and board a flight, but you may get to the airport either at Gatwick, Manchester, Heathrow Terminal 5, Terminal 3, and you could be stopped and returned. Let's see why. I have already submitted that when people submit false documents, false information, they fail to disclose information, they may end up being refused and get 10 years ban. But more importantly, sometimes these people, even though these allegedly informations have been submitted, they say end up getting these visas because maybe the entry clearance officer have not done due diligence, but they get to the point of entry. And that immigration officer, this time I'm not talking about entry clearance officer. The entry clearance officer is the one that is going to make decision on your case. The immigration officer is the one that is going to ensure that you enter safely into the UK. So you get to that point, and the immigration officer then calls you aside, begin to ask you questions about your application. And most times when people seek help from those that assist them in filling these forms, they don't even know the information that have been recorded on these forms. And therefore, when entry clearance officers questions them and they give information that is different from the one that has been recorded on their forms, there is then a reasonable conclusion that false information has been submitted. Very tragic. And quite sadly, most of these people, quite innocently, though they might not have provided false information, because of the fact that they are not aware of which information that have been recorded, they end up being stopped, refused entry, and sent back. So that's one grounds of refusal. Sometimes people are coming for programs. There is a date for that event to take place. And people feel that once they have gotten the visa, most times visas are granted for 6 months, multiple entry. But the purpose for which that visa has been granted, especially for your first visit, needs to be complied with. So if your visa was for reason of coming for a program, and that program was to occur on the 20th of May, and you end up coming to the UK on the 22nd, then the officer is going to ask you, my friend, why are you here? Because that program was meant to be the 20th of May. Why are you on the 22nd? Again, that means that you can be refused entry. So there are quite numerous reasons, simply because people don't take cognizance of some of these things, or they don't take their time to even question those who are assisting them to make these entry clearance visit visas on their behalf. And the most painful aspect is that most times, as I've already said under paragraph 320, some of these things can result in automatic ban for 10 years. So for 10 years, you cannot come to the UK on visit. You cannot come to the UK sometimes under any category of visa, save those who may make application under Appendix FM as spouses. And I will go into that. So having given a gist about these visas and why people are always being stopped and returned or refused entry, I want to look at those who are coming in as spouses. Now, if you are coming in as spouses, again, most times when people are getting visas as spouses, they need to be familiar with the information about, look, sometimes people don't even bother to ask what work their spouses are doing in the UK because they don't care. Or even sometimes their spouses might claim that they are chief executives, when in fact, perhaps their job titles are quite different. And I don't want to be derogatory to people, but of course, some people, for one reason or the other, they might give different job titles to their spouses. But the consequence of giving this false information to your spouse is the fact that when people have been granted this entry as spouse and they are coming into the UK and they are not aware of job titles. I have had a client who I have done application for, the application has been successful, she's been granted the visa, and then gets to the point of entry and he's asked, what work does your husband do in the UK? She knows what she does, but she was not even able to explain exactly what the job title is and exactly what she's been doing and how long he's been working. And this is information that is on the form. And for that reason, that person was refused entry, and he was convinced to say something that he shouldn't have said it because he was promised that he was going to be helped. And before we became aware, she's boarded the next flight to Ghana. Sadly, we couldn't help. So when people are coming in as spouses, again, they also need to be aware of what sort of information that have been recorded on the application forms. Such that when they are questioned, they are able to give accurate account of this information, because otherwise they could also be refused entry. So I'm saying looking at entry, because most times when people are refused entry, people get so confused. And there are many times that we have received calls, oh, Brother Thomas, my sister is coming, he's been stopped, he's been taken to the detention center. And these days it's become so common that almost every time people are being refused entry. For every flight that arrives in the UK, there are lots of people that are sent back. Not because their visas were not genuinely granted, but simply because of some of these basic facts that were meant to have had at their fingertips. And for those of you who are coming as spouses, most times, dwelling on the spouses, because they are the ones that, apart from those who are coming on visit, they are the next group of people that easily get stopped and returned. The immigration rules, normally, quite sensitive area of it is the issue of sham marriage and sensitive and marriage of convenience. Now, for sham marriage is a relationship that is not genuine, and normally, for you to establish the genuineness of a relationship, it means that you need to be familiar with your partner. So, for example, if you don't know your partner's date of birth, you don't know the date you were married, then it means that the entry clearance officer can reasonably conclude that that marriage is sham. But in fact, most times, especially most of us men, we may not even keep the date we got married. What we know is that we are married. But these are the information that entry immigration officers will be looking forward to those who want to come in as spouses. And therefore, if they are not able to give these informations, they normally get their visas cancelled and refuse entry. So that's for those who are spouses coming into the UK for the first time and getting stopped and eventually being returned. So before you embark on that travel, you need to be aware of what sort of information has been recorded. If somebody assisted you to fill this form, know when you met your spouse, know what job he's doing, know what he does for a living, what times he comes home, even on your day of travel, what date he's supposed to start work, he's supposed to finish work. Because if you don't know all these things, then you could be held at the airport and eventually be refused entry. This is not conclusive that your relationship is that of a sham. Because I deal with clients, or we deal with clients that they are in a genuine relationship, but because they are unable to ideals or to say some of these things or to answer some of these questions correctly, they are returned, quite sadly. So for those of you who are coming on visit visas and spouse visas, I want you guys to take note of some of these things. Because tonight I'm looking at how people are refused entry to the UK. So having discussed these two categories of people, I now want to look at this topical area of skilled worker route. Yes, most of us are now relying on skilled worker route to come to the UK because there is a shortage in the healthcare sector. And as I said last time, by December, I'm yet to get the current update of the data or the statistics, but by December of last year, there were 250,000 shortage in the healthcare sector alone. So most of you are getting this skilled worker visas coming to the UK, or some of you have been granted these visas in the UK, and therefore you are perhaps on 5-year route, you indefinitely remain. Let me quickly look at some of these conditions that may result in these visas, or those of you either coming in being refused entry, or those of you who may seek to be on this route to get your indefinite leave to remain, being those visas being revoked or cancelled, to be precise. But before I discuss the skilled worker, because I know it's a very topical area, I want to acknowledge viewers on the platform, those who have been obviously being with me tonight. it's always important that I acknowledge them. So please, if you are watching this program, if you put a comment, because I cannot see those who are watching, but only those who are able to put comments, that I'm able to acknowledge them from here. And I want to acknowledge you. So let me know that you are watching so that I can acknowledge you. I have Sophia, a song, it's a good evening, again, lawyer. I have the famous Joe Chaka, Nikwe, MC Chaka watching. I have Farouk Moro, who is also watching tonight. Farouk, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I have Nana Owusua watching. I have Thomas Asuama. Thomas, you've left the group. Why? Thank you so much for watching, Thomas. I have Gabriel Bankori watching. I have Tina Tamakru all the way in Accra watching. It's a good evening, lawyer. I have Mariama Abubakar. Assalamu alaikum. I have Busy RB Entry, Beatrice, watching. Thank you so much, Beatrice. I have Banko, is a good evening, lawyer. Thanks for this topic. I have Atta Safo. Atta, welcome back to the UK. I have Nasiri Lamidi Bonareve. I have Kennedy Kwaku, who is also watching tonight. I have Tika Opa Edwards all the way in Nigeria watching tonight. I have Juta Wilfred. I have Nasiru. Let me say thanks for clarification. Sophia Song says very, very educational. Wish my opportunity to listen to you. Freda Sare, thank you so much for always being part of this show. I have Ohene Yabwa Asuma watching. I have Guy Papa. Oh, Peter, how are you? I have Peter watching tonight. It's a good job, Brother Thomas. Peter is my classmate in Legon, very brilliant guy. I have Dora Frimpon watching. I have Levels. I think he's in Scotland. We are all yes, lawyer. It's very, very important topic. More fire. Then I have Mariama Abubakar. Guys, thank you so much for watching. At this point, I'm going to look at the skilled worker conditions, how you can retain that visa. It's so precious. You know, recently I was having a consultation with a prospective client, and I was taking my time to explain some of these things, which people are so naive. And even those who have been granted these licenses don't even know, with respect to them, the conditions. So therefore, it's like you have a blind man leading people with the best of intention, but eventually it's like a car that is leading to a crash. So it's important that we educate people, because lack of knowledge, people do perish. So tonight is an opportunity for those of you seeking to have skilled workers to listen attentively. Those of you with skilled worker visas to also listen attentively. And those of you with student visas or coming in as students to listen. And it might not be any of you. It might be a family member that you may need this information. You can just say, oh, one lawyer said this, so be careful. So if this is the first time or you have just joined me, tonight I've been looking at how people refuse entry at the airport. Why? The grounds for those refusal. And I've also looked at those who are banned for 10 years under paragraph 320 for either submitting information that is false, for either giving false misrepresentation or failing to disclose information or submitting false document. But I almost shifted into the skilled worker route. But before I do that, I want to quickly give a solution, profess a solution. For those of you who are on the 10 years band, or those of you who have received a decision, some of you sometimes send me this thing on WhatsApp, and when I read it, I feel so sad for you. Because for one to be banned for 10 years, sometimes for no fault of theirs. But paragraph 320 is drafted in such a way that whether you knowingly or unknowingly provide that information, then entry clearance officers or immigration officers have a blanket grounds, when I say that, very wide grounds to rely on this paragraph 320, which is you having submitted false information, failed to disclose false information, submitted false document, or made misrepresentation in your application. So where do we seek help? Now, I normally like quoting these case laws because whenever we are dealing with cases of this complex nature, because of the benefit of UK law, relying on case laws, which means that last time when I was doing the 20-year rule, I made viewers aware that we have the immigration rule, which is the part 9 that I'm currently looking at. And then we have the casework guidance, which is the guidance that Home Office staff publish, guidance that they use to make their decisions. But the one that you may not find on the internet, which is quite exclusive to those of us who are lawyers, is a case laws. So for those of you who are Christians, it's like you knowing your Bible and where to quote that particular verse that can bring fire to the camp of the devil. So sometimes when people have had these issues and there is nowhere to turn to, there is somewhere that somebody probably would have taken the case to the upper tribunal, to the Court of Appeal, and seasoned judges have made pronouncement and decisions that no, this is wrong. So most times, some of these bans can be challenged in a sense that there is a case that clearly stipulates that irrespective of what the immigration rules have stated, if these documents are submitted or this information are submitted without the intention of solely securing immigration advantage, without that genuine intention of solely securing immigration advantage, then it will be unfair for people to be banned. So sometimes somebody may have assisted you. It is not your intention that you are seeking immigration advantage knowingly. But most times, these entry clearance officers or those who are at the borders as immigration officers tend to refuse these people. So I want to entreat you that if you are in that category, there is always help. Of course, the 10-year ban is there, especially whenever applications are refused. You have these 28 days to make administrative review, and obviously you can send your application or you can make a judicial review if the outcome of that judicial review is not something that was in your favor. So obviously, maybe that period have lapsed, that period has expired, it's gone, you are on about 3 years, you maybe had that decision about 3 years ago, a year ago, 6 months ago. Then it means that you can make the same application. If that application is refused and you're able to find a good lawyer, he might be able to challenge that decision. And in fact, there are case laws that I'm not going to sit here to bore you, because one of my viewers was saying that lawyer, sometimes you are so legalistic that we get confused. So I'm taking my time these days to limit myself to speaking to lay people rather than talking as if I'm talking to lawyers or judges in the court. So if you have a good lawyer, then of course, the fact that you have been banned does not mean that you have to stay there for 10 years. Those decisions, when you create a new application and it's refused, because obviously if you are 10 years banned, if you make an application, most applications automatically will be refused, then that might be an opportunity for you to challenge that decision. And quite rightly so, if you are able to demonstrate that it is not intentionally provided to secure immigration advantage, then under the circumstances, this ban could be overturned. So you don't have to remain there for 10 years without being able to see your family members, without being able to come as a spouse, without being able to use your come as a skilled worker because you are banned. And sadly, sometimes people even don't know that they have been banned. So that's that. So there is a solution for those of you who have been banned. There is a solution for those who have been refused entry for one reason or the other. But I'm now going straight to the skilled worker conditions. Quite topical. Now, normally when people get these skilled worker visas, when the sponsorship certificates are issued, it gives a date when one is supposed to commence work. Just like students, when you are delayed for more than 28 days, if you get to the airport, yes, you have the skilled worker visa, but you can be returned home. So I want people to take note that the first condition for those of you who are coming from abroad and skilled worker, don't wait for more than 28 days for start of your work. Because if you do that, you are likely to be stopped at the point of entry and returned home to wherever you are coming from. That's the first point. The second point is that if your sponsorship is withdrawn, so sometimes people may have that visa, they may have arrangement with I remember that some people they may have spouses coming from abroad. The day they get to the airport, they find themselves somewhere else. So their spouse, their husband or wife may not find them again until the second time that their visa is about to expire. Now, the same vein, if you are coming with skilled worker visa, your future is tied to that sponsor. I've already said that the first point is that if you are delayed for more than 28 days, for the commencement of your work in the UK, you could be returned. And for whatever arrangement you have with your sponsor, if you don't comply with it, that sponsorship could be withdrawn even before you get to the UK. Again, if it's withdrawn, you'll be returned home to wherever you are coming from. That's the second condition for those of you who are coming in. Now let me look at those who are here. And some of these things that I discussed here, it looks so simplistic. But there was a time somebody called me, one of my shows, he watched it from the YouTube, and he said to me, "Lawyer, I have a problem here. My job, I have challenges with them. I'm a nurse. If I'm persecuted or they report me to the regulatory body, I might lose my license. I need to switch as soon as possible. How long do I have to do that?" And he said to me, "I have asked about 7 lawyers. All of them give me different answer." And I smiled. Now, I want viewers to listen quite attentively. I have just said that these 28 days is very, very, very crucial number. It's like the number modulo 7 or 4 when we used to do modulo in mathematics. So these 28 days, if you are coming in is delayed for more than 28 days, you could be refused entry. If your sponsorship is withdrawn before you come in, you could be refused entry. If you are in the UK and you have unauthorized absence, when I say unauthorized absence, there are absences that you have statutory right. For example, if you're on maternity leave, you are excused from work because you can be on maternity. If you're on holiday, that's not counted as absence. If you're on sick leave, that's not counted as absence. However, if you don't go to work and you're not on sick leave, and when I say sick leave, normally we all know that after the first 7 days, you have to give yourself what they call self-certificate. Because your GP will normally not issue fakeness notice until after the 7th day of your absence. So normally, if you have absence from work, again, for more than 28 days, then that your sponsorship visa or skilled worker visa can also be revoked. And I want viewers to be quite attentive here, because remember that most of these visas are on a 5-year route to indefinite leave to remain. And now it's a period where Home Office is granting it because there is a shortage of occupation. Having said that, that means I'm going to give my 4th point. I've given 3 points here as one of the conditions for people having their visas being revoked or cancelled. I'm talking specifically about skilled workers. So when they need to extend or renew or switch, then they go caught with some of these breaches. But having said that, I made mention of shortage of occupation. There is also what they call job codes. So you might be a senior care manager, and then eventually you end up, even if you're doing a different work with the same employer, you need to switch. Again, if you don't switch because your job code or job title has changed, that could result in a breach, and that visa can be cancelled. Point number 5. If, for example, we have shortage occupation which allows people to pay below the minimum, such as £10 or 20,480 a year for senior care workers, for example. And normally, codes such as 645, which is all those care worker categories, the moment you switch, sometimes your manager might decide that he wants to give you promotion because you have been doing very well. I've said that we city law officers will do licenses for businesses, and thankfully we've been advising them on some of these issues, how they can manage their staff. Remember, I have said that if your sponsorship certificate is withdrawn, you'll be stopped or your leave will be revoked. Now, if your job code or your job title changes, or your occupation changes, your job title has changed because your job title might be in the shortage of occupation, so your salary, change of salary again, can result in this visa being revoked. I had somebody who was just telling me that his colleague is having wages that are varied, and I smiled. Most times when I know that there is issues, it's not for me to criticize people, but obviously this is why I do some of these programs, for people to generally benefit from this cogent free legal advice. So a change of salary could result in your sponsorship visa being cancelled or revoked. But most importantly, if your sponsor, for whatever reason, loses their license, then that is what I will normally describe as the watershed. The watershed is whereby something happens from the top and it spreads all the way down. It means that once that person has lost, and this is why it is so important that those of you who have businesses that have these sponsorship licenses, you need to get a lawyer that knows the law to assist you. Normally, Home Office, they are not stupid. They have two users, level 1 users. And a lawyer can put himself there as one of the level 1, so that in terms of compliance and all those stuff, the license can be protected and the staff who are on sponsorship visas are also protected. Because some of these silly mistakes, just imagine 28-day absence. If you don't receive your pay, for example, it could be an evidence of absences. That visa can be cancelled. But I have said that when the license is revoked, that becomes a watershed. It means that even those who have those skilled worker visas will end up getting their visas being revoked unless within 28 days. And that is the question that somebody has gone around, asked 7 lawyers looking for accurate answer, was giving different answers. I said, look, you need to do this within 28 days. It's like 7 number in a modulo. Those of you who have done mathematics, I've forgotten my maths. I think modulo 7 is 4 or whatever, 28 or whatever it is. So in this case, you need to understand that 20 days calendar. Very, very essential. So that particular person, I said, look, within 28 days, you need to switch. If you don't do it, that visa will be revoked and you probably need to go back and come back in. So if the license is lost, you probably have to, as soon as possible, make sure you switch to another sponsor. So tonight I have taken my time to explain, most importantly, those of you who are coming in and being stopped, either because you're on visit visa, or because you're on a spouse visa, or because you're on a student visa. For students, I always say that if your course is delayed for more than 28 days, again, just like those on skilled worker visas, you could also be stopped and you will not come back to you will not come to the UK. So the course start date is so essential. That 28 days is so important that if you mix it, you are more likely to return. But it's also important to add that most of these categories of visas, people come with their dependents. When I say dependent, their wives, husbands, and children under the age of 18. Again, with this watershed, once the leading person is revoked, then all these people get affected. So tonight, I have looked at all these 4 categories of visas who are so essential that people protect them. And those of you who have these care worker licenses, that you are not receiving proper advice. I am not saying you are sitting on a time bomb, but please, there are so many lawyers out there who will be able to assist you to get a proper advice. And those of you on this business, now there was a day a gentleman just walked to the office to seek advice on his visa, and I was shocked. Normally I charge consultation, but I said I won't charge consultation. Because most of the time when people get visas, they don't care again. But it is important that you understand the conditions of that visa. Because most visas lead to sometimes indefinite leave to remain. And if you don't understand the conditions, especially this skilled worker visa that I'm just describing, and if you don't get the right advice, then eventually you might get into trouble and getting your visa revoked. So I have looked at the visitors who are coming in, the spouses who are coming in, getting their visas cancelled at entry. I've looked at skilled workers and minimally students as well. This is now the time for people to ask questions. If anybody has a question that he wants to ask, this is your opportunity for free legal advice. CITI Law Solicitors brings you the best. We make every effort to fulfill our corporate social responsibility by bringing this program to you every Tuesday and Thursdays. And for those of you who have joined us for the first time, we do this program Tuesdays and Thursdays. We do numerous areas of law. I sit here and discuss about housing law, immigration, family law, personal injury and clinical negligence, commercial dispute and civil litigation. We discuss all these areas on this platform. This is where all your legal needs can be met. I want to take opportunity once again to acknowledge, I can see that the viewing has gone up, and I want to acknowledge all those who have joined us, including those who have just joined us. For those of you who have just joined us, tonight I'll be looking at various categories of visas, including how people visas are refused when they are made at the entry point, where visas are refused. Why people are banned for 10 years when their visas are refused. And most importantly, when people get to the entry, why they are always sent back home. Ghana man will say, when you be working and so nice you order. It means that you will see Israel, but you will not be able to touch the land. So it's so like this, I'm just making jokes out of this, but sometimes when we receive calls and people are on the flight and they are being returned, it's so sad. And for those of you who have dealt with us, we fight with our last blood. Yesterday I was in the office, one client that we had to deal with. The whole day I put everything aside. My colleagues were all in support, and by 7 o'clock before we left the office, that person had been released. This is what we do for clients. Because we know that sometimes when people get to the point of entry and they are stopped, they have genuine visa. Everything is fine. But just because of one error, just because they have misspelled the word or they have misspoken, they are detained, held there. At the point I was asking the immigration officer, under what powers are you holding this client? You have held this person for almost 12 hours. You've not made a decision. What are you holding him for? Yes, you have the powers to make inquiries and to interview the person, but not for 12 hours. So you see, some of these things, when we come here to discuss, we want you to know that these things are going on. People are suffering. People are unjustly being detained because sometimes they have not been able to answer certain questions that they are required to have been able to answer. And immigration officers are obviously taking advantage of some of these situations and detaining them. So we do this program so that people, the community can benefit can understand that these things are going on. So if you have your brother who is coming, let them know that they need to know what information has been recorded on their forms. Because when they get to the entry and then they ask them and then they cannot explain, they are going to be returned to whatever they came for. And it is for this reason that people need to understand, especially those who have been banned for 10 years. So let me just acknowledge viewers here. I have Letitia Aite. He said that if you are a student, is it advisable to apply for association house, and also when and at what time can you apply for permanent stay in the UK? Wow, this is quite a broad question. If you are a student, most times you have what they call no recourse to public funds. So I think you are talking about housing association. I don't know if that housing association has looked at your visa and feels that they are going to rent it out to you. Remember, some of these housing associations are charity organizations. And if, as long as it's not a council house that you are receiving public fund on it, then of course you are able to rent it. Because some of these housing associations are by charity organizations that are called non-profit organizations who want to make sure that they are even affordable renting to people. So of course you might be able to do that. Regarding how you can get your stay as a student, this is a very broad question again. One, if you are here lawfully for 10 years as a student, you may start your degree, end up doing PhD, end up doing the post-study work, and then going to do your PhD and doing another course. And eventually, as long as you are here lawfully for 10 years, you will be able to apply for indefinite leave, which is what I think you meant by permanent stay. If you are able to fall in love with a woman and you get married, then of course, if that person has leave to remain, you can be on 5-year spouse route. Again, within 5 years, you can also have your indefinite leave to remain. If you are able to become a parent of a child whose mother is a British or have permanent leave to remain, and that child is British, again, you can be on 5-year route to indefinite leave to remain. So there are various options for you to get your indefinite leave to remain or permanent leave to remain as a student. So Letitia Aite, I don't know whether I have answered your question, but if you feel I have not answered it, you can put another comment. Please, what can lead to a student visa being revoked? Yes, I've already said that if your school's license is revoked, then of course, many years ago, there were a lot of schools who had problems with their licenses, and their licenses were revoked, and their students either have to go somewhere else or their visas be revoked. If you delayed for 28 days before the start of your course, sometimes you'll be given temporary admission, but your passport will be held there, so it can be revoked. If you have problem with attendance, then of course your visa can also be revoked. But some of these visas, just as I was telling somebody about this care worker visa, it's like a franchise. Home Office has given franchise to these organizations like student bodies, school organizations, and care workers and teachers, and all these organizations that have these licenses. They have a franchise with Home Office, but they have conditions that they need to fulfill. And for that reason, if something is not right, they have obligation to report. And that's why most times, students are reported that they were not in attendance and their visas are then revoked. So these are some of the things that can lead to someone's visa being revoked. But as long as your attendance is okay, the school has not reported of any breach of your visa to the Home Office, then Home Office will not have any power to revoke your visa. So I have Sylvester Kwame, Sylvester Nyame, who has joined us. Thank you so much, Sylvester Nyame. I have Christine Blankson. Christine Blankson, thank you for joining us tonight. I have Nanajwa Mosiah, who is also watching. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
I have the famous Juliet Devor. He said informed program. Juliet, thank you so much for watching. I have Gideon Ampon, who is also watching. I have IGNG watching. I have Tubana Ulo Halu, who is also watching. I think this is one of my Nigerian brothers. Mungozi Tama Okafo Olumu, who is also watching. Miss Olumu, thank you so much for joining us. I have Lina Owusu watching tonight. I have Yara Owusu. Wow, I have a lot of Owusu tonight. Don Siba, who is also watching tonight. I have Nana Osei watching tonight. I have Buama Augustin. Buama, thank you for joining us tonight. I have Prince Owusu. Well, I have about 5 Owusu tonight. Prince Owusu, who is also watching. Letitia Ayiti watching. I have Akosua Ajen Benewa. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I have Fabi Arinola Abiona. I hope I pronounced this name correctly. Fabi Arinola Abiona. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I have Joseph Ojamiri Bamidele. Joseph Bamidele. I have Lamidi, who is obviously watching. I have Dimbagajio Mohammed, assalamu alaikum, who is also watching tonight. I have Chris Ewusi. My middle name is Ewusi, so Ewusi, you are my namesake. I have Juliet Devor, Gary Papa, my former classmate in Legon, Mariama Abuka. Thank you guys so much for joining the program tonight. At this point, I'm going to give viewers opportunity to ask questions, and I will soon be leaving the studio if there is no question coming. On Thursday, we are going to have the same program in 3. We want to make sure that when people get these visas are protected. They comply with the conditions, and even though sometimes people ask me, lawyer, why do you do all these programs? Because when people get in trouble, you make more money out of it by resolving these problems for them. So why do you always want to advise them so they don't get in trouble? No. Money is not everything. Obviously, we know what people go through when they have some of these problems. And some people through no fault of theirs, just because of lack of knowledge. So it's important that we educate people. This is a community program to ensure that people who are following city law solicitors, I always say that it is those employment cases who have been dismissed unfairly, discrimination, personal injury, those are the ones that I know that insurance people and these employers need to pay heavily for what they have done to people. But at the same time, I want to make sure that people who have fought so hard to get some visas are able to protect it and don't get it revoked out of sheer, excuse my stupidity, excuse my language. But if they are able to learn some of these facts about the conditions about their visas, then obviously they are able to protect these visas. Those who have gotten visas who are coming, if they understand some of these things, because every time flight comes, most times, almost every week, we get people calling. Family members have been stopped at the point of entry at the airport. And it's quite frustrating and sometimes very devastating that some of them end up being returned to Ghana or Nigeria or wherever they are coming from. So tonight had an opportunity for us to learn and to discuss some of these things. I want to thank all of you who have been present tonight, and hopefully I'm going to be here with MC Chaka on Thursday, and next week we are going to have a very unique topic that most of you will obviously benefit from. So I want to thank each and every one for joining us tonight. God bless you all. God bless you. Thank you.